Welcome to Chinwag Tuesdays, your passport to a world of language and culture. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chinwag Tuesdays. I'm Amanda, and today we have Julia, originally from Germany, but she's been living in Sydney for the last couple of years. Thank you for joining me today, Julia.
Thank you for having me.
Now, a bit of a self introduction. I tried to keep it very vague so that you could tell everyone a bit about where you're from, what you do, how you ended up in Australia.
Oh, well, I ended up in Australia for love, maybe to start with that. Have lived in different countries over the last years. So I studied, moved with every degree. I moved a bit further away from where I'm from. So I started in Germany and then I went to the UK for my first master's degree. And because I love studying, I did a second master's degree in the US. And then after a bit of stops in different countries, my partner and I decided to settle in Sydney, which is
Yeah.
a fantastic country, like a city. I know that it's very far from at least my friends and family, but I would recommend for everyone to travel here. And what I do
Yeah.
is I work mostly with knowledge workers and academics and people in the kind of education university sector. And I basically help them to pursue their dreams and to work internationally and to feel comfortable doing that and not to be held back by feeling embarrassed or shy about English or like how your English might sound or that they haven't spoken it in a while, and just to set up a plan, do it together, and then for them just to feel confident enough to go for it. Yeah, that's what I do.
I love it. And so is this something you started in Australia, or have you been helping academics when you're in UK as a bit of a side thing to the masters and then US, or is this something you've really just started being in Australia?
Well, so I always have done some tutoring and some kind of teaching. So like teaching has always been with me and I've always enjoyed teaching. During my
Yeah.
master's degrees, though, I did not have fun to do anything else. Like I studied and studied. I lived at the
I
I
so love
enjoyed.
asking that question. It's a bit silly.
No, fair. I mean, I think it depends on how you approach your studies, and also, like, I was lucky
Yeah.
enough, I got scholarships for both master's degrees. So, like,
Wow.
I think I didn't have to earn as much money as some other people. So, I basically, after I graduated from Boston, I really miss teaching. Like, I enjoy studying and I enjoyed the heck out of all my degrees. But I was like, well,
Yeah.
I want to get back to teaching. And then I started teaching English at
Yeah.
university. And then someone approached
Yeah.
me to do a one-on-one training for a professor, and that's how the whole
Yeah.
thing started.
And is it just your own business that you're doing at the moment? Or I actually can't remember. I did check LinkedIn, but are you also working somewhere in Sydney?
Right now, I do only my online business. I do every now and then I
Yeah.
teach classes at the University of Sydney as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
English kind of
Yeah.
academic
Awesome.
English classes. Just for the last few
Yeah.
weeks, I've done mostly my own business things.
Good to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite chuffed. Like I'm really the other day I just realized it was a Sunday night and I was looking
Mm.
forward to Monday. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I have my things. And I was like, how lucky am I to do that? I think many people
Yeah.
are like, oh my gosh, it's a Monday.
That's a sign that you enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you've lived, studied, and worked, I believe, in Germany, UK, US, and Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong with any of those. But what have been some of the biggest cultural or communication differences you've had to adapt to in each place? Because I feel like they'd all be very different in different things.
I think one of the things in the US, especially, have you heard of the concept of like intercultural communication when you talk about peaches and coconuts?
I haven't. No.
Well, I don't know who came up with this, but basically Germans and lots of other maybe more Northern European countries are coconuts. So like they're very hard on the outside. You can talk, which is true. Like in Germany, you can have a colleague for like months and months. And you've never talked to them outside of the office. And they're nice to you and they're polite to you and you will have no
Yeah.
problems. But like to actually be invited to hang out with them at a cafe, it's gonna take some time. But
Yeah,
then
right. Okay.
once you get to the inside, it's all like soft and sweet. Well, hopefully. And like once you have a German friend, like there's you start with them like forever.
Yeah.
So that's the coconut. And then the peach is the opposite. So it's very soft on the outside. So that's what I experienced in the US. Lots of
Mm.
small talk, lots of people are very lovely and chatty and like invite you to everything right away. And you don't
Yeah.
even have to know them very well. But to actually get close to them and for people to like call you at 3 a.m. I'm at the hospital, that takes a bit longer. to develop
Yeah.
like really close friendships. So I
Yeah.
think that was one of the main things when I lived in the US. And someone sent me the article about peaches and coconuts, and I was like, ah, that's what it is. That's what I'm experiencing. Yeah.
And what would you say about Australians? Because I interviewed an Indian man a few months ago, and he actually spent about 15 years in the US. So he works for Amazon.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And so he said that he found it a lot easier making friends in the US compared to Australia, whereas Australians are friendly. And I've heard this a lot. Australians are friendly, but it's a lot harder to try and make that deeper connection just because people are content in their own little bubble, basically.
Mhm.
So what has your experience been like with Australians compared to, say, the UK, US?
I've asked myself the question as well because I've kind of had the advantage, and I think it's similar for you. Like we've both moved to a country where our partner is from that country.
Oh, true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had immediate access to all the lovely like family members and friends and acquaintances, and just immediately hung out
Yeah.
with them with this person. So I
Yeah.
didn't have to start from scratch. And
True.
also,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
when I did do like a silversmithing course and like choir and such, and the other expats tend to be more open, I have to say. Maybe that's a little bit more
Yeah.
kind of answering your questions because they don't have
Yeah.
their bubble yet. And so
Yeah.
it tends to be like I had a really good friend. She moved away now, but she's from the UK. And we just fellow Europeans. And then we didn't know Sydney. So that was like an immediate kind of connection. So it's not as maybe open and being invited to everything right away. Although
Yeah.
it's much, much warmer than Germany, for example. Like Australians are so much more
Yeah.
relaxed, which is not a surprise, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I actually saw the funniest video. I'll have to send it to you after this about it was a comedian, stand-up comedy flip. And he was saying how Australians like to think we're really laid back, but we're actually not. Like we have so many rules that we follow. Like if there's a line, you better line up, you better not cut in front of someone. Or like there's all these different rules and things that we follow, but we're not as laid back as we would like to think. And he used an example of when he visited Brazil. He went to a beach on Brazil. People are drinking and having parties and dancing, and they came up to him and was like, "Here, have a drink, come dance with us." And then he made the comparison. Can you imagine being on a beach in Australia and like someone coming up to you, like, "Get out of my personal space," sort of thing, like, "Go over there. This is my area." Like, that is so true. That is so true. That's so funny. And there was a comment from someone that said, as an Australian in Germany, I disagree.
Oh gosh. That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my theory is that it's the weather. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's a huge aspect. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, to
Yeah.
experience it. And I think one of the things that I have heard, I'm not so much of a person to go like clubbing much, but I've heard people complain that Australians are so relaxed and laid back, but then the nightlife is not really as happening and like things close really early. The cafes, like I'm from Germany, we have Kaffee and Kuchen, so cake and coffee and such, like at 3 p.m., 4 p.m.
Yeah.
You can't do this in
Yeah.
Sydney. Everything's closed. So you have
Yeah.
to be an
True.
early
Yeah.
bird to get your
Yeah.
croissants.
Exactly. Yeah. But you go down to Bondi Beach at 5 a.m. and it's packed. People
Exactly.
are exercising and running and got their coffee out.
It's such a morning culture. Maybe that's also a difference. I mean, I'm not even a morning
Yeah.
person really, but Australia, goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. That's something I had to change here because India is a late country. So places don't open till like 10:30. Cafes rarely open before 10:30. Where in my little suburb, they don't open until 10 at least. In the city centre itself of Chandigarh, I think there's a couple that open at about 8 or 9, but still, that's not like Australia where you can get a coffee in the city from a coffee cart at like 5:30 or 6.
Yeah. Do they open up later though? Like, can you get a
They do.
drink? Okay, that's more my speed actually. As much as 5
Yeah.
p.m., hot chocolate. That sounds pretty.
Yeah, so a cafe I would say but they opened up a couple of months ago, but we recently discovered it and it's so close to us. And it reminds me of a cafe in Australia. It has like all these different coffee varieties. They've got the French press, the mocha pot. They have flat whites on their menu. They've got all these
Wow.
different coffee. Yeah. And they also roast their own coffee beans there. So I said to my husband, I feel like these guys either spent time in Australia or definitely abroad because they have so much knowledge of coffee. We go there every Sunday to the point where they know our order now. I just laugh. They know what I order.
Amazing.
We'll go there usually, like sometimes we'll go at 1, or I think we went on Sunday, 5 o'clock in the afternoon and had our coffee and cake. So yeah, it's definitely opened a lot later. Like Starbucks, I think is open till 11:30 or something new at night. So
Wow.
yeah, you do have those later hours.
But then you get into the late dessert section. And there are some cafes too, and like the dessert cafes in Sydney, where you can do that too,
Mhm. Oh, true.
which are
Yeah,
nice.
there's a couple in Brisbane that I've been to before, like Max Brenner and stuff like that as chains, and then they've got some smaller, like family-run ones. Yeah, yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, you can. I feel like in shopping malls, I feel I sound so like non-Australian. I feel like in shopping malls though, at the shops, they do have you can get coffee because I remember when I was home last year, my friend and I we went to the movies and we grabbed a coffee from like a little coffee shop inside the mall. And this was like at 6 or 7 at night. So I think inside malls and stuff, you're okay. You can probably get coffee at that time if you wanted to. But who wants to drive all the way to like a Westfield, having to find parking just to grab a coffee?
Yeah, that's commitment. Heads off to that person.
All right. So you were saying before that you help academics in particular feel more confident presenting and writing in English. So what would you say are some common struggles your clients face and how do you help them overcome those struggles?
So I love all of my clients. Like they're all fantastic people, ambitious. They have amazing goals. They come into the session, and I feel like they kind of diamonds in the making. Like I just help them ask a few questions here and there, help them set up training, like regular
Yeah.
routines. But I don't like when people in the end, when they feel more confident, it comes from them. Like they've blossomed into that wonderful English
Yeah.
speaker. So I
Yeah.
think, especially if people come from the academic context, university, think tanks,
Mm.
education sector, often they're quite successful and they have their
Yeah.
experts, often they're like PhD students, master students, writers, journalists, and then that doesn't line up with how they feel when they speak English or when they write English. Like
Yeah.
they're so eloquent and erudite and all of the like expert personality and identity, and then in English they feel just like they run out of words. They don't know how things come across. Like, can I say this? Does this
True.
sound right? So I think that's one of the main things people struggle with. And also just no time. Like people, I mean, everyone's busy anyway, but especially when you're publishing, when you're teaching, when you're traveling conferences, like just to sit down and think about what kind of resources do I want to use to learn English? When do I want to do it? What kind of goals do I set?
Mm.
Fair enough. Like the time is not there.
Yeah.
The mind space. So that's what we do together. So we
Yeah.
sit down, like the first session often. We often realize that it's not just English. Like I had a new client and we realized that English is just a tool to a much bigger goal that he actually has in mind. And then
Okay.
once we
Mm.
talked about that, he was like, "Oh yeah, I really got into it." And then I see the spark, and then we go like, "Yes, that's what we're doing." And then we set up like
Yeah.
a realistic, sustainable routine. Like because if I tell them you
Yeah.
have to do this for 2 hours a day, they're gonna run away as far
Yeah.
as they can. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And with your business, so how do you normally find clients? Is it through LinkedIn? Because I know you're very active on LinkedIn, or is it through word of mouth from the university? Or yeah, how have you sort of found your client base?
It started by someone approaching me at a university I taught in Germany. I think I said this before, and I
Mm.
used to teach courses, and then they said, "Hey, Julia, do you want to also do this? One professor needs one-on-one support." And I said,
Mhm.
"Sure, sounds great." So that was
Yes.
through, I guess, my supervisor just seeing that must have not done such a bad job, maybe, and then she just thought I might be a good fit. And
Yeah.
then word of mouth. What else? Yeah, friends and family recommending people. LinkedIn, quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, a mixture, which is lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Also, I've been calling you Julia. Is it Julia or Julia? I'm so sorry. You should have corrected me earlier. I just assumed.
No, that's all right. So, well, I don't like. I've got many of my friends have partners from South America, so I'm like Julia there, and it's so in Germany it's Julia. So it's like
Okay.
the personal pronoun, like Y or
Yeah.
U almost. but I don't mind.
What would you prefer?
Well, I mean, if you do, maybe the Julia thing, if you do remember, but I really don't have a
All
preference.
right,
I've
I'll
heard all
remember.
kinds of.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's
This is actually
don't
a learning
worry.
experience for me. As soon as when I start connecting with new guests now, I'm going to ask, how do I pronounce your name? Not
It is
just
a
assuming that's my own assumption. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a thing. Like I once, and then still in my, that's years ago now, but I had a student after a course in the feedback form. She said, "You know that you kept pronouncing my name wrong."
Oh.
And I never, like in the first session, I did go through the name list and I said, "Please correct me if I pronounce your name wrong." And she did, which is fair enough. It's a group setting. Maybe she didn't feel comfortable. And it still haunts me because I was
Oh no.
mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, for like 3 months. You've had to endure me mispronouncing your name. Yeah. So I try to do that too.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I would have been horrified, but anyway, learning experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you and I can both agree that a lot of migrants do feel nervous when speaking English. For you in particular, in professional settings, especially in front of native speakers. So what advice do you normally give to help them feel less self-conscious and more confident?
One person, she was meeting someone from the US, and then I told her, "You do know that probably we looked this person up, that you know way more languages than he does, right? Like you actually come to this conversation speaking in a second language, third language. She knew some Latin as well, which I know that you can't that. Like this is such an expertise that you bring, and this is so impressive that you had this conversation in your second language. And
Yeah.
for you to actually be able to have this, and then I think like for her, she told me afterwards that was such a turning point where she was actually like, yeah, like this is quite impressive what I'm doing, even though I
Yeah.
might,
Yeah, it's great.
get a few pronunciation things there, here and there wrong.
Mm.
So that's one of the things that I often tell them, like, this is quite amazing what you're doing to communicate on on such a high level about these
Yeah.
complex topics in English to start with. Like, that's really
Mm.
something to be proud of. And then also, depending on your language level, I think, like, how accurate you are. But if you have a certain level and you can get your point across, to try to
Mhm.
focus really on content and to really try
Yeah.
to, like, focus on connecting with people, looking at your audience. Do they have
Mhm.
questions? How are the facial expressions? Am I getting my point across? What do I want
Yeah.
to stress? Rather than trying to think of like, what's the freaking preposition here? Because that's not what they're gonna remember. Like what people remember is the main
Mhm.
points and then whether you've been passionate about your topic, for example.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
so
what do you
true. I
do?
mean,
What do you say, Amanda?
yeah, look, it's very similar to be completely honest. So one thing I always say, and this is something I do as well, if I self-correct, because something that I find with a lot of my students is that they get nervous about making mistakes. And I'm always saying, even native speakers make mistakes. I guarantee you make mistakes in your own language and you self-correct. No one even blinks an eye. No one
Mm-hmm.
will even notice. And I'll even do it if I'm speaking on my Instagram stories or something. Like I'll highlight how I've just made a mistake, self-corrected, moved on. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So easier said than done. Don't be scared to make mistakes. But it's something that I've really tried to adapt in Hindi. And that's where I've seen most progress is that I make mistakes, I learn from it. I'm able to, when I listen back to my recordings or videos, I can actually find my own mistakes and self-evaluate and self-correct. But yeah, native speakers are always making their own grammar mistakes or making mistakes or self-correcting. Sometimes they'll make grammar mistakes and not even realize, and they won't self-correct, and that's okay because really, like you said, as long as you are getting your point across, if you're focusing on the content of your message, there's a reason why prepositions are unstressed in pronunciation because they're
Mm-hmm.
function words, they exist for grammar purposes. So there's a reason why we stress certain things, and it's to get the message across. So if you're confident in your delivery of the content, honestly, grammar is just a byproduct. Yes, of course, you need grammar in some cases or most of the time. It's not the be all or end all. So as long as you are confident in what you're saying, if you do make a mistake, self-correct, move on. No one will even think twice that you've self-corrected because it's just a normal thing. You just have to watch any sort of TED talk or any sort of interview and see people do it that you know it's normal.
Yeah. And what you just said about like watching your own Instagram videos, that's also one of the things I do. Well, with those clients that want to, is that they record voice messages and
Yeah.
they send them to me, but they kind of also record them for themselves. And
Yeah.
you can do that just to practice, depending on what the goal is. But sometimes just to
Yeah.
chat about the week, how has your week been going, just to lower the threshold, feeling more
Yeah.
comfortable. But also, if you
Yeah.
have, because I think your question was also, professional situation, you have like high pressure,
Mm.
to recreate that a little bit. Get some notes out, have some keywords out, and then do a recording.
Mhm.
Send it to yourself and then see how it sounds and like which things you can polish. Maybe not to a point
Yeah.
where you do it by heart, because I think that can come across as a little bit artificial, but that is
Yeah.
a great way, I think, to actually practice
Mhm.
speaking and to add the pressure a little bit to do the recording, because
Yeah.
yeah, it does help.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it does so much. And I noticed that for me, like I've got my brand, Aussie English with Amanda, but before Aussie English with Amanda, I created a personal brand called G'day Namaste, which is about my life
Amazing.
in India.
Okay.
So I started off with a YouTube channel. I don't really post on there much anymore. My focus is my business, but I would post vlogs in Hindi and I would I'd add in my English subtitles to my family and friends who don't know Hindi. And I was able to pick up so many mistakes, or I was able to then also feel like, oh wow, I got that right. Like you could tell my brain was ticking over, and then like I said whatever I wanted to say, and then if I looked up on Google Translate and I actually got it right, so then I'd be like, oh yes, I got this right. So it's a really
Mhm.
good like way of self-reflection. And I say to my students, and I use this as an example, and I say, you don't have to film yourself to put on the internet, but recording yourself, if you can get past the awkwardness of, if it comes down to our ego, we don't want to listen to ourselves, right? But if you can move past that and record yourself either by voice or video and use that as a self reflection tool, it's a really, really, really great way of improving. And if you're not doing that, then you're really doing yourself a disservice because it's such a great way to look back and reflect and then use that as a comparison. So do it, compare your recordings from when you first started to
Yeah.
1 month, 3 months, 6 months, right?
Yeah. Because it is, when you're not studying for a test or something, it is sometimes difficult, I think, to track your progress. But that's one of the things
Yeah.
you can do is you listen to and we did this with a client recently. Like we finished the first 3 months and now we're continuing. And we did that. Like we listened to the first voice recording and then to the last one. And there was like,
Yeah.
I was so happy. And I also asked him, because it doesn't matter really what I think as much, but like how he feels about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he told me he felt so much more relaxed about it and I just go
Yeah.
for it and I'll be fine. And I was like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
is awesome. I'm so proud of
Yeah.
him.
And one of the, I think, things about Australia, which is so great, is that Australians are laid back, even though we said this before that they're not. In some cases, yes, especially when it comes to language. Like, yes, you'll find the odd person who might pick you up for saying something grammatically incorrect, but most of the time, as long as people can understand what you're trying to say, they will not correct you because it's seen as giving unsolicited feedback, which we don't like to do. So if they
Mhm.
can understand your key message, your content words, what you're trying to say, then that's fine. Not very good for if you are wanting to improve on your mistakes. But if you ask people, hey, I'm trying to improve my English, can you correct me when I make a mistake? They will start to become a bit more confident doing that. I think it's the fact that people don't correct every single mistake. It really does help to build up that confidence for an English learner or a language learner. Because here
Mhm.
in India, I could get corrected by a contractor when they come over if my brain's taking over trying to think. And if you have someone that's correcting you every time you make a mistake, it can be a little bit hard sometimes. You start
Yeah.
to, self-doubt creeps in, right? So you don't have that pressure talking in Australia because people generally are pretty patient while they're waiting for you to speak. Yes, you'll get the odd person that's probably not, but it's not the majority.
Yeah. And also, I mean, my impression, I do live in Sydney, but it's like there is so many different languages and cultures here. So it's like it's
Yeah.
so common to have. It's actually a good question. I'm gonna look this up after our conversation. Like, how many people speak English as a second language in Sydney? Because it is so.
Mm,
And then you have all the tourists too. You have the residents, you have the
true. Yeah.
tourists. So, I mean, Yeah, I did want to add something though. Like it's what I had one client ask. She said, "Well, I'm going to record a voice message, but what is it going to do if you don't give me feedback?" And I do give feedback too.
Yeah.
But there is, and I did look it up because I do remember from my studies, there is research, like there is proof,
Mm.
scientific studies have been done about like a self-monitoring process in your brain, what you just described.
Right.
Like as soon as you say something out loud, your brain
Yeah.
monitors what you say and it reflects on it and it gives feedback like, no, I did not, this sounded wrong. Like I heard it differently on the
Yeah.
TV show yesterday. So there is
Yeah.
scientific backup to this idea of
Yeah.
recording yourself. And it's not just to do it, but like your brain actually
Yeah.
works actively to improve your English then, or your
Yeah.
Hindi or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. Like people think that, oh, well, if I don't know that, how do I know I've made a mistake? You actually will know. Like, give yourself some credit. Like, you've learnt the rules, and yeah, that you might not be able to pick everything up, but
Mhm. A lot.
you'll at least pick something. But you will know. You will.
Mhm. Yeah, and the rest, like you can pick up, well, I can pick up then. You get, someone to
Exactly.
work
Yeah,
with.
it's like a joint thing. True. Yeah. All right. So you were saying something earlier before about you're not going to tell your clients you have to do this for 2 hours a day, but you like to give them a bit of a routine that's going to last. And that's something you are passionate about, building
Yeah.
language routines that last. So what would you say is one small but powerful habit that learners can start today to improve their academic or professional English?
That's a really good question. I would say start small and
Mhm.
find something that you really enjoy.
Yeah.
It can be like if you love audiobooks, put it on in the background when you cleaning the dishes. And you don't even have to focus on it, just to hear the melody, like your brain is gonna soak that up. And then as soon as you speak out,
Mhm.
it's gonna compare what you heard with what you produced. So something like if you enjoy audiobooks, do that. If you like reading, find some texts that are appropriate for your level that don't frustrate you,
Mm.
that you actually
Yeah.
read and you enjoy. Like find topics. If you're into like scientific rom-com, find like what find something that you actively enjoy, like you're looking forward to doing
Yeah.
anyway, and then do
Mm.
that in English.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do like really small things. Maybe 10 minutes of an audiobook every day.
Yeah.
And then you
Mm.
stop, and then you gotta be like, I kind of want more. So you're looking forward to doing it again tomorrow. Because
Yeah.
if you set the goals, if they're too big and you expect yourself to read like 20 pages of a book every day, and the book is not
Mhm.
really, and then you're disappointed every day, and then the whole thing is just going downhill from there. So yeah,
Yeah.
find something you really enjoy. Find joy in learning, positive feelings
Mm.
associated with it, and really small
Yeah.
goals. I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know what is like one thing that you recommend.
Look, no notes. That's exactly the same advice I give my students, honestly. That's exactly what I say. Find something you enjoy in your mother tongue or your native language and try and find something like that in English. So if
Mhm.
you like watching comedy movies, try and look for comedy movies in English or Australian English or whatever, depending on their goal. Small steps, small goals. It doesn't have to be, like you said, 2 hours every single day. It could just be 5 or 10 minutes. If you can't commit to 5 to 10 minutes a day, do it 3 times a week. So
Mhm.
start off with achievable goals that you know that you can work towards, that you can achieve. And then once you've done that, you can say, wow, that wasn't too bad. I think I can do 4 times a week now.
Mhm.
Um, I give this advice, but do you think I do it for Hindi? No, I really struggle. But
That's
I
the
know the
thing, though,
theory
isn't it?
behind it.
I know. I had the same thought recently, like when I looked at my own kind of routines and setting goals. But one thing that maybe I want to add is I tend to set bigger goals also like for my business. And then I also have
Mhm.
rewards for it. So I recently had a bigger goal that I actually achieved, which I was very happy about. And 2 months
Congratulations.
ago, I bought a perfume that was on my wish list for a while, and I thought, you know what, this
Yeah.
goal is big enough to warrant this reward. And then it sat in the
Yeah.
corner of an office for 2 months. This box I hadn't it was still sealed. And then 2 weeks ago, I reached it. I was like, you know what, now I can. And it sat there like a little motivating like one
Yeah.
day I get there. So that might also be something. Think of a reward
Yeah.
to treat yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, otherwise it's going to feel like you're chasing gold with no reward, right? You tick it off and go, oh yeah, next one, move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So actually take time to enjoy when you achieve those things too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I mean, there is so much going on. So learning a language in addition to
Yeah.
working full time probably is admirable. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
treat yourself for that.
Yeah. Exactly. I actually did this recently. I secured an Instagram collaboration. I don't get too many paid collabs. So I got one recently, and as like a celebration, I haven't got it, it hasn't arrived yet, but I bought a secondary pendant to put on here. It's a little cross because I'm Christian, Catholic.
Oh,
So yes,
nice.
I'm really excited. So I've been eyeing off this cross pendant for probably about a year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, gave myself the same advice. Like I need to like treat myself basically. I need to like appreciate that I've achieved this thing that doesn't happen often. And rather than just thinking, oh, on to the next one, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And then every time you see the pendant, you're probably going to think, you're going to have this feeling of like, oh, yeah, I did this thing, And
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. It's a little reward. I mean, there's a reason why, well, I don't have kids, but like I remember when I was a kid and I've seen my sister do it with her kids, but there's a reason why kids get rewarded when they do, their milestones or things like that, right? Because it triggers all the happy things.
yeah, we can basically condition ourselves if you look back into like pedagogy and education. But it is,
Yeah.
why not? If it
Gold
works,
star.
yeah.
Exactly. Yes. You've mentioned that you love books. I know that you love books from LinkedIn. And something I've read on LinkedIn is that you've mentioned how literature and book clubs can build language skills and human connection.
Mhm.
Why do you think this kind of learning is so effective for migrants and international students?
Yeah, so both my passions are teaching languages, literature, teaching English, and then literature and books. Like that's what I studied as well. So yeah, I think one of the reasons, especially when you ask about migrants and international students, is that you build community and people share their perspectives and they
Yeah.
hear other perspectives, and you kind of meet in the middle through the medium of the book. Often the
Yeah.
conversations we have, they start with The Great Gatsby or Hemingway or something, and then we take the topics and the questions and reflect on them and talk about them, have different opinions, different perspectives, different experiences. And then you grow
Yeah.
together as a group and you share those moments and you develop relationships. And I mean, people have met up offline afterwards.
Oh,
So
that's so cool.
yeah, and like when I recently finished one book club, and then in the feedback form, someone said they were really looking forward to the book club every week because it's like meeting friends and catching up,
Oh, I love
and
that.
feeling like they're in a safe space where they can just be themselves. And even if they make mistakes in
Yeah.
English, I correct them very
Yeah.
gently if they need correction. So and then maybe that's the second point. So community is the first, and the second is you do practice English without even realizing, because most people are so caught up
Yeah.
in the conversations and they really
Yeah.
focus on the point that they want to make and not on the pronunciation and the grammar, that it
Yeah.
just, you just speak and speak, and then you get so much practice out of it,
Mm-hmm.
that by the end of it, you're like, oh my gosh, I've talked for like 90 minutes now with someone else. And yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. It reminds me of, oh, you might have seen my LinkedIn post yesterday, but I have a monthly group subscription. So people pay for a month. Then we do 4 group classes a month. They're like speaking classes. And 2 girls from the group met up in person last week. They're both in Melbourne. They're both Spanish speakers, but they made an agreement to speak in English only. And they spent 5
Wow.
hours walking around Melbourne, talking, catching up, having a chit chat. And it was all in English, and they agreed to help each other. And one of my students, sorry, bit of a backstory, one of those students is actually a one-on-one student as well. So we had a one-on-one session, and she told me about this.
Oh,
And she had said to me that it's all because of this grit club that, we got to meet and, yeah, have this experience. I'm like, oh my God, that's so nice. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I created this, is to have that kind of community feel and to have that experience where people can just feel like they're coming for a catch up. essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about languages, is because it's like a deeply human thing, like we're
Yeah.
connecting with
Mm.
like with human beings. I'm a human being, you're a human being, even though you might be a
Yeah.
professor or something and have your own chair or whatever. But like everyone struggles and has problems and questions and joys,
Yeah.
and then you just meet in this space and you
Mm.
can just be, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful about language. One of the things.
It is. Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that I love about, even though my Hindi is not amazing in terms of like I'm not advanced or anything, but I'm at a point now where I can communicate, is that it gives me an opportunity to meet more people, more
Yes.
so than if I just spoke English. So I'm able to meet so many different more people and learn new experiences and have new experiences because of language. And I think that's a really special thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I said, I think, in the very beginning of our conversation today. Like,
Mm.
that's what I ideally want for people when they come to me,
Yeah.
is that they don't, like, oh, I don't go there because I don't feel comfortable about English and I feel embarrassed about blah. And like,
Mm.
it's a lot about, which makes sense. Like, I understand that. If you haven't
Yeah.
spoken English for 10 years, of course you would feel that way. But then to
Yeah.
open up those groups and career opportunities and all kinds of things that are
Mm.
just suddenly everything's so much more accessible and you just feel
Yeah.
you can do it. So
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
the power of language.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, you've also explored deep work and the importance of rest. Rest is so important. So, how do you personally manage focus and avoid burnout? And why is that important for language learners and professionals?
Whew, very good questions. Why is it important for language learners and well, I think in general there is so much going on right now in the world, probably in everyone's private life, professional life, etc.
Yeah.
But also with social media and all these notifications popping up everywhere, emails pop, like messages, everything. So like,
Yeah.
I think this feeling of just everything is always there, you're always accessible, people can always message you, one day
Mm.
text you and tell you to do something. I think
Yeah.
that's there a lot, and especially like in academia where people are approached for, to give their opinion on a recent event if they're experts or something else. So
Mm.
it's, I think, just to sit down and create spaces where it's just one thing, and just
Yeah.
to maybe turn your phone out, maybe create like a room in your apartment where you don't have internet access, or so just to
Mm.
sit there and just focus on one single thing. And it
Yeah.
can be listening to a podcast or reading. How do I read it now? I have recently subscribed to a few print magazines. So I take these print
Oh,
magazines
cool.
and I don't read
Yeah.
it on the laptop, but I read it on paper, like actual, not
Yeah.
that great for the environment, but good for my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in terms just to be able to focus, it's also a mindfulness thing. But yeah, to just
Yeah.
create like a
True.
space where it's just one thing, you can get language learning, obviously that benefits from that. But also when you do
Hmm.
knowledge work, when you do research, when you have to do writing, when you create like a list of sources, you need that focus. And you need that focus
Yeah.
not just for 10 minutes, but for a bit longer, probably. So that's,
Yeah.
yeah, why I think that's like the concept. So Cal Newport, who was a professor in the US, coined that concept.
Hmm.
And I read his
Yeah.
book, and like in that moment, I was like, yes, like that's so necessary and so needed.
Yeah.
And that also comes, I think, with that also comes rest, because once you have had those
Yes.
moments of focused work, you have achieved something and you can actually say, all right, I did this one thing today, I can reward myself, and now I can rest, and I have these
Yeah.
very specific spaces and times where I do this, and I
Hmm.
separate this from my time off where I
Yeah.
recharge. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's so important. As you and I both have our own business, it's very easy for the lines to get blurred. And having that day of rest or whatever it is really crucial. I recently went through a period of burnout and it was just a lot trying to manage everything and just trying to figure out where I wanted to focus my energy. I really sat down and thought about what areas of my business I wanted to keep growing, what areas I could actually stop or maybe reduce, things like that. And I'm very much a people pleaser. So there's things that I don't like. There's things where I'm like, oh, well, if I do that, then like people will be upset, people will get sad. And I'm like, no, I have to actually stop. Like, for example, this podcast I was doing every single week. And I did that for like a good year, a new episode every single week. And I do everything myself. Sometimes I outsource the editing, but mostly I do it myself. And I just found out that it's too much trying to get the guests, do the interviews, do the editing, and then having to do it again the next week. So I'm now doing it every fortnight and I'm finding it much more manageable and I'm still enjoying the process. So little things like that. I also have a work phone. So my business WhatsApp's connected to that. I have an out of office on my WhatsApp. So if someone messages me outside my business hours, they get notified. And that was just a way of me setting boundaries with myself. So then when I'm finished work for the day, my work phone does not leave my office. So yeah, it's something that I have done to try and have those boundaries. But yeah, it's really hard otherwise, trying to keep everything separate.
Yeah, but it is important. Like I personally, like as you said, I don't take normally my laptop outside of the office. Definitely don't take it into the bedroom. It goes, you keep your work in a certain space, and also then when you leave that
Yeah,
room, you close the door, and that's it for
yeah,
today. Which is not that easy because like especially when you work with different time zones. Like when I tend
true.
to make dinner, Europe wakes up, and I get lots
Oh,
of
right.
emails. But then again, like
Yeah,
I keep telling myself, unless it's like a really quick urgent thing that I can reply to, but I'm not a heart searcher.
yeah,
Like if I respond to it in 12 hours, it's gonna, and no one has died, and it's gonna be fine.
yeah, true.
So yeah,
Yeah,
but it is a work
yeah,
in progress, obviously. Like I sometimes still, you know, answer emails a bit
absolutely.
later,
Yeah,
but it is so important, and
yeah,
it does make a huge difference. Like once you really carve out those spaces, I've had that
yeah.
feedback from different clients that they said like, oh my gosh, like it sounds like such a simple thing, but once you actually do it,
Mm,
2 hours of focused work, no distractions. Like when did that actually happen recently? So
yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, when I'm trying to do like that focus work, I have do not disturb on my phones, like all these sorts of things in place to try and, yeah, get the work done. But if we have a think about burnout for language learners, because I've had this question before on Instagram, I feel like it's just becoming more of an effort, blah, blah, blah. But I think it comes back to what we were saying before about finding enjoyment. Don't force yourself to do something just because you think that's what you should be doing with your study, but find enjoyment out of it. If you like listening to audiobooks, switch it over. If you like, I don't know, playing games, for example, finding ways to make it fun. I have a student in the group. He is really into music in his native language. And I'm like, start listening to Australian songs, listen to Australian music and sing along. That can still be practice, right? So try and find ways to like get enjoyment out of it, I think is a really good way to try and avoid burnout in some cases too for language learners. What do you think?
yeah, no, I agree. I also recently in my newsletter, because right now, like at least in Europe, everyone's like on summer break on the beach, not
True,
doing
true.
much, which is very well deserved.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I just in my newsletter I said, I really don't feel like doing much at all anyway, let alone, looking into English. What I kind of mentioned before, like ex- accept that passive learning is also happening and you don't need to like have this high
true.
expectation of yourself. If you put in like an
Yeah,
English podcast in the background or whatever, you don't need to expect yourself to listen or to understand. Like
yeah,
just for you to hear this melody. I did say this before a few minutes ago, but like that's fine.
yeah,
Like you don't once you get to
yeah,
this
true.
point where you're like over it, you're burned out, you don't really want to sit down and actively do anything,
Mm,
you can just let it happen in the background and it will still be beneficial for your brain.
true.
And you don't
Yeah,
have
yeah, I
to
love
put
that.
this pressure on yourself. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Yulia, how can people contact you if they want to know more? I'll put all of the details in the description of the episode, but I know that you're on LinkedIn, website, social media, anything like that.
I do have a website. I am on LinkedIn. I have an email address, which shouldn't be that
Mhm.
surprising. I also have a newsletter which you can reply to, so that would also be one way to contact me and just kind of stay in touch.
Mhm.
I write it
Yeah,
every 1
nice.
to 2 weeks, like what we just talked
Yeah.
about, depending on how much is going on. But yeah, all
Yeah,
kinds of
yeah.
ways. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I do work with one-on-one clients and I love it. I really enjoy that. But I also do courses and workshops for universities, educational foundations, and design
Yeah.
them. So different, yeah, to different things.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today and having a chat with me. It's been so good to finally get to know you virtually, besides some LinkedIn comments and messages.
Same, Amanda. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.